Welcome to NASPA Tonight. I'm your host, Josh Greenway. Tonight, we present a very special episode. It is a celebration of the life of Annette Tedesco. Hopefully, you were able to catch for a minute some of the wonderful photos that have been shared around Facebook over this past week. Special shout out to Roger Coleman, who did really some fantastic photography work for Annette, and he shared some really nice photos with me for that. Annette was someone very special, and here to remember Annette along with me, I can think of no better person to share the screen with me than a partner in crime of sorts. Someone else who I know considered Annette very special, and that is Scrabble director Kieran O'Connor. Kieran, how are you?
I'm great. I'm glad to be on tonight to talk about Annette.
Yeah, for sure. And we've got a bunch of people who have joined us. I see people on my page, on the NASPA page, and the NASPA group. I'm going to try to monitor whatever chat. So if you've got something to say about Annette or pictures to share or anything like that, you can drop that into the Facebook comments, and we'll make it part of the show. We're going to talk about a few things tonight. We're going to talk about Annette's relationship with players, about Annette's hospitality, about Annette's relationship with directors, and then we're going to talk about what the plan is moving forward, sort of the news that we know, and what's going to happen in terms of future memorial and what's going to happen with tournaments. So if that's sort of the more of the details. If you're interested in those things, we'll probably cover those at the end. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about Annette. How does that sound, Kieran? Sounds
perfect.
Okay. So I will begin tonight with the and I'll say one more thing. I want the show to be in good spirits. I mean, I can't imagine Annette wanting anybody to be upset under any circumstances ever. And so that's why I framed tonight as a celebration of her life. So that's the tone that I want to try to strike tonight. So I'm going to start by telling the story of when I first met Annette, and I'm also interested to hear your story of first meeting Annette, because I don't know it. So when I first met Annette, I went to one of her tournaments. I don't know which one it was. It might have been New Year's. I don't really know. But what I loved about Annette is when a new player decided to play, she would call them on the phone, introduce herself, and start the relationship before the person ever got there. And of course, we all know Annette's voice, and I immediately thought that it was a practical joke, that somebody was joking, that it was a prank phone call of some kind. But eventually, going to that first tournament and getting that introduction from Annette was really special, and I think that's what she brought to a lot of her relationships with players. So, Kieran, tell me about the first time you met Annette, how you got to work with her, stuff like that.
Well, the first time I met Annette was my son Matthew. Many people know is a long-time Scrabble player. He's almost 21 now, and his first tournament actually was an Annette tournament in Saratoga Springs, and he was 8 years old, and I didn't go to the very first tournament, but I went to the next one, and I remember the gravelly voice and thinking to myself, who is this lady? And one of the things I really loved about her up front was she was very, very pro kid. She wanted to have kids at tournaments. She said, no, they should play. I want them to play. And once in a while, the people who, some of the players didn't like kids, kind of sometimes when they lost, especially. They didn't like losing to kids. But Annette was very, very firm about, no, I want them here. And she was, for a couple reasons, she wanted them there. She thought, hey, if you can play and you can play with adults, that's great. But she also knew long term she was looking to grow the game and keep players playing, and you got to get more players in. And in the time I've known her, I mean, I can name maybe 20 players, kids. They're not kids anymore, but who started and she encouraged to play. So that was my very first. And then over time, having gone to so many tournaments with my son, I started doing directing tournaments, helping out, and then doing directing for the tournaments for her. So that's sort of my beginning story with Annette.
Yeah, and obviously over time, I mean, you became kind of the primary director for Annette, and which is great. You along with Vince, and then I sort of got my nose in there somehow. I started by kind of helping Annette with registration, and then helping her budget. And then at some point, I think Vince wasn't going to make it to Lake George one year. So all of a sudden I was co-directing with you. So my relationship there with Annette grew over time. I wanted to sort of, as we go through the broadcast, just put up some of the pictures. These are the pictures that were in the slideshow. If you were with us at the beginning of the show, you'll recognize them. But obviously, if we look at the kind of outpouring of, memories on Facebook over the course of the past week, we know that players really connected with Annette.
Yep.
I love this one of her and Lipe. So yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm sure you agree with me that what made Annette's tournaments different was sort of this family atmosphere and the way she interacted with players.
Well, we used to always, it wasn't a fight, but I'm very like, all right, let's get going. We got 9:00, games have to start. And she'd be like, I'm trying to talk to this person. I want to meet him. And is it like, I felt like I was in some old lady's house and they were going to sit and have coffee cake together, She wanted to make sure but there was a method to her madness, because she got people to come back, and people came to tournaments, and, that she was on the game. She had a secret people didn't necessarily realize, and that's why her numbers and people who come to tournaments. So,
absolutely. Here's another. Oh, this picture is. Let's see. Let's bring up another picture. There she is with Seth. We've got a story someone threw out on a comment here, and that's Joseph Bowman saying the day we lost Austin Steinecker in 2012.
Stallknocker, yes, Utica tournament. She was playing him.
Austin's very last game, which he couldn't finish, was against Annette.
That's right.
And Joseph says now Annette and Austin can finish that game. So anyway, if you were lucky enough to attend one of Annette's tournaments, you'll certainly know what we're talking about in terms of just her unique relationship with players.
Right.
I often said, I know you've never played a tournament, right? Other than maybe the NASC early bird, or maybe not even that. School
Scrabble kids. Yep.
Okay. Right. So, but I've played in a lot of tournaments, right? Outside of what Annette has put on. And what I would say is that sometimes you feel hosted, and sometimes not so much. So certainly with Annette, excuse me, with Annette, that was certainly the case. And as I like to say, just on a personal note, I gave a speech at this last year's Lake George, tried to make it brief, but that isn't always the case with me, where I talked about that I really have two role models in Scrabble when it comes to whatever my involvement is going to be with a tournament, either as a director or an organizer or whatever it is. And one is John Chu. That's the first person who introduced me to it, who's probably, I think it's probably fair to say one of the best people you could ever pick to run a tournament. But the other part of it is Annette, and that's the feeling part of it, and just trying to make players feel welcome, trying to look after the players, stuff like that. So, and that was the reason why, if you were at a Lake George or a 4th of July or whatever it was, if I was shaking you down for money, for raffle tickets, or for a donation or whatever, as I said in that speech, Annette was probably the only person that I would have put myself out there to shake people down for raffle ticket money. So anyway, I just wanted to
one thing I wanted
that.
to say that people may not know about players and how she cared about players was, when you're running tournaments with Annette, she never talks to you during the tournament. She pretty much just leaves you alone because her focus is on the people. Like the day she's like, I don't care about pairings. I don't care what that. You guys do that. And never, not once did she ever have anything to say about pairings or anything like that, because she wasn't concerned about that. She got directors, and that she figured that was all set. She left that to us. For
sure. The one thing that she would try to throw in there is on announcements. She'd be like, pump the dinner. Whatever it was.
A good marketer, right?
That's right. Put some push behind this or that kind of sub event.
Right.
Now, speaking of hospitality, I think the other thing we wanted to talk about was the 4th of July barbecue. I think I've got a picture here from the barbecue. Let me find it. But obviously, she opened her home in a way that you don't always see. Not that many tournaments are in somebody's home. So I wanted to share this picture. Kieran, we're going to be off the screen for just a minute, but they'll still be able to hear us. This is one of my favorite pictures of Annette, and with Chris Lipe in the background on his saxophone. This is obviously at the barbecue at Annette's home. And this one for sure is courtesy of Roger Coleman. Here, we'll bring ourselves in here in these little boxes. So yeah, 4th of July barbecue. Obviously, lots of different people have lots of different experiences with this event. I don't know. What are your thoughts? The fact that she brought people into her home for this thing.
Well, first of all, the barbecue is massive. I mean, she would be days and days shopping, prepping, chairs. She ordered a porta potty. She had an ice cream man. For those of you who haven't been to this barbecue, she actually had an ice cream man hired to come and bring ice cream to people. I mean, she opened her house.
Or as she called him, sorry, Kieran, or as she called him, the ding-a-ling man.
Yes.
She'd bring in the ding-a-ling man. Sorry, go on.
Nobody went home hungry, and she really put a lot at the tournament. And one of the nice things about it is, and that's why she did it, was she wanted people to be together. It wasn't about the Scrabble so much; it was about the getting together and hanging out with people and having fun. To her, that was the key part. And so the barbecue was definitely a reason. The reason for having it was to get people together.
Here's a shot here of the barbecue down in the bottom right. This is from about 10 years ago. You can see Annette there with Marianne. If you are a longtime attendee of these tournaments, Marianne was kind of Annette's ward for a long time. And Marianne certainly enjoyed being around all of these Scrabblers and being in the middle of all that action. Portia says that she's so glad she went to the barbecue last year and brought her daughter.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got some other pictures here. I got, let's see, Carol McDonald sent me something. Oh, this is going to stretch out a little bit. Hold on. Let me find a better template to show this. This is a nice picture here. And we'll throw that there. Okay. So there's one. We can see Ileana there. And you can just see, I think that's Julia in the background. Behind her is the Dingling Man's truck. Yep. You can see the picnic tables behind there.
The guy in the front is Ed Liebfried.
Yes.
Who was a player for a long time. Actually just moved to Florida.
Nice.
But he was one of Annette's friends from a long time players. But yep.
For sure. Now, I wanted to, there was another, let me get another picture up here really quickly. This is one that, one is from the barbecue, and you can see her there with Linda Wansell. They had a really close relationship for a long time. And then the other shot on the right are some pictures that were shared by her family. So you can see Annette there on the day she got married in the lower right. I don't know the full story of this, but you can see some pictures from Annette's youth. So I really enjoyed taking a look at those. While we're talking about the barbecue, I do want to share one thing. And that is, I did an interview with Marlon Hill at the July 4 tournament 2 years ago. It was, and I'll give fair warning, it was one of the first set of interviews that I did for, it's not the warning you would maybe expect from a Marlon Hill interview. This is the warning. The sound system isn't very good. You can hear everything, but there's a little bit of distortion. So this interview is about a minute and a half. I'm going to play the whole thing just because of how Marlon describes the barbecue itself and how he describes Annette. So we'll be back with you in a minute and a half. Excuse me, in the meantime, enjoy this interview with me and Marlon from a couple of years ago.
I'm coming to you live from the July 4 Scrabble tournament in Albany, New York. I'm sitting with the one and only, you know him, you love him. He's legit Scrabble famous, Marlon Hill. Marlon, how's it going?
Rough. I'm tired.
You're tired. So here's the deal. What do we have on tonight? What is going on at this tournament?
It's the July Annette's Albany tournament. Annette Tedesco's Albany tournament. It's a family type atmosphere. It's nice.
And I got a question.
Great.
What does July 4 mean to you?
I'm done.
Okay, hold on. That's a separate podcast that we could get into.
I'm Frederick Douglass. Come on.
No, that's a whole separate topic. Here's what I'll say. What do you like at that barbecue? I hear someone's making key lime pie from scratch.
Glenn Filzer. He's actually staying at Annette's. He's driving, me back and forth. I stay at Annette's. So he stopped and got ingredients for key lime pie. So
nice. Well, that sounds good. And then Tony's going to be doing the grilling.
Yeah, they got food galore.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So, what would you say to people who who are attending this tournament but have never gone to the barbecue?
Go to the barbecue. That's the reason to come to this tournament is the barbecue.
Absolutely. That's why we love this tournament. What do you think of Annette? Do you love Annette?
Second mother.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, man. You got anything else to say?
No, I ain't got nothing else to say. Hi and goodbye.
All right. Thanks, Marlon.
So there's the unforgettable Marlon Hill. So yeah, that's one of my favorite questions I've ever asked somebody is asking Marlon, what does July 4 mean to you? And him responding with, who do you think I am, Frederick Douglass? But yeah, second mother obviously is kind of the headline there. Right. So just wonderful. And then, of course, getting the whole family, neighbors, whoever it was, getting them involved with serving the food and doing all that kind of stuff, and then raising, if you were asked for a donation at that barbecue, it all went to the guys running the grill and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And we also suspect, Annette, those barbecues, there was money coming out of her pockets.
Absolutely. And I don't think everybody actually knew that.
Yeah.
But that it was so important to her that I used to tell her, I'm like, come on, Annette, you got to collect more money. She stopped bothering me.
For sure. So, that's the barbecue. We also wanted to talk about her unique relationship with directors. You talked about it before, that her focus at the event was with players. And she would often say that she always had the best directors. And it's kind of hard to argue that point. If you look at the list of names, we kind of went through this, and hopefully we're not missing anybody. But the people that she had run her tournaments over the years, David Boyes, John Chu, John Robertson, Alan Pengelly, Ross Brown, Dan Blake, Andy Saunders, yourself, Kieran O'Connor, Vince Castellano, me to some degree, Kevin Gauthier. It's really an impressive list of people. Like you said, she always wanted to kind of make sure she had her bases covered. Like,
right.
Bringing, having her all-star directing team in place, but then bringing people along with little, okay, you can direct this early bird. Right. You can direct, you can help me with registration. That's how I started to get involved. And you talked about sort of having some depth, right?
Yeah, she and I used to talk a lot I would call her on the way to work a lot. And so she'd say, like, listen, I'm trying to think. I want to make sure we have enough for this or that. What do you think of this guy? What do you think? How would he be as a director? And then she'd say, well, can you call him? She would do, I was like sort of the intermediary sometimes. But her goal, like I said, was to just make sure she always had people, because she didn't want to have anything to do with directing. She wanted to do the other things. Just her, that was not her goal.
Absolutely.
Her goal was bringing people together. So.
For sure. And I can remember her talking about all of these people. And I think we have, I'm trying to think, like even Michael Donegan covered an event as well.
Oh, yeah,
right. I'm sure I'm missing.
Yep.
I'm sure I'm missing some people as I go through that list, but I remember the way that she would talk about David Boyes, the way she would talk about John Chu, and how John Chu was absolutely unflappable. And it came down to, I think John said on Facebook the other day that it came down to his kids got too old to do a 6-7 hour drive each way. And just with everybody as they came and went, right? So John was there for a while and then he wasn't, but she would still talk about John. She would talk about Ross. Ross hadn't directed in the last few years, but was really a staple for a long, long time, and just on and on. So, and she always made it a point to talk about how she would stand by her directors under any circumstance. So I don't know if that was
very supported.
I don't know if that was in the cases where, maybe some degree of NASPA discipline came into place, or, whatever it is. Ultimately, as Samuel Kaplan says, Annette was one of a kind, director and person. R.I.P. Okay. Anything else on directors? Anything we're missing there?
No, I bet if we were able to get every one of them on the show, they'd all have great Annette stories and tell you how they enjoyed working with her. So, I have no doubt about that. So,
yeah, absolutely. Oh, we've got the one thing I'll say is that someone's just asked me whether they can join live. We'll make an attempt at this as we go into sort of our next topic, and we'll see what we can do. If you want to come online and talk about it, what you're going to have to do is go to my Facebook page. And what I'm going to do is post the link to join. what you're going to need is, I don't want to get into too much detail, but you're going to need to be in Chrome. Okay. So up-to-date Chrome is what you would need. So I'm going to post the invite link there. So, and I'm going to try to pin it. I can't seem to pin it. Anyway, look through the comments. I've just put in a join link. So to the person out there who asked how they could come on the show, go ahead and give it a try, and we'll see what happens. So let's talk about the plan going forward. Unfortunately, Annette was with us until last Wednesday. Sort of the announcement went out last Thursday. And the funeral, I believe, has already happened. That was a close family affair. Has it already happened? Did you confirm
I believe
that?
so. I did not, but I believe it did.
Okay.
And then the family is going to be in touch with us to do some sort of memorial. We don't have details. Likely July 4th timeframe,
Right.
but no details as to exactly what and what shape. They're obviously, not ready yet to figure that out. But once we know, we'll definitely post things on the Facebook page and on our tournament page as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and sort of the main point that we want to make here, because we've been, and Kieran for sure has taken point on this, we've been in touch with the family, we've been in touch with the venues at these tournaments, and we intend to, it's our intention to continue these tournaments going forward. And
Annette,
certainly, go ahead. Yeah,
just
please.
to interrupt you, sorry, Annette called me the day before she died. And just so she's not doing well, and her major focus is you have to keep running the tournaments. So that was her message. She was worried about getting just sending me information. I'm like, we'll take care of it. We got it. And Josh and I had been talking to her over time about transitioning at some point.
That's
so
right.
that is our intent to continue the tournaments, and our first focus is going to be on July 4th because that's obviously right around the corner.
And we can confirm July 4 is going to go ahead. Basically, a new flyer is going to be in place. If you're looking to register for July 4 right now, you can get in touch with either of us, and we'll make that happen. But we'll have some new a new flyer and some new information coming up.
On
and
the
you just got a couple of new registrants today, right?
Yeah, yep. We got Chris Leip and Randy Goldberg coming for Collins.
Which is
That's
awesome.
great. Chris used to be a regular until he moved out of town. The trip was a little farther for him, but we're looking forward to that. And my contact information is on each July 4th tournament now, even if the flyer's stale. But we'll have the flyer probably within a day or two, but my contact information if you want to register. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, we anticipate some type of memorial happening in conjunction with July 4. We're not sure what that is going to look like exactly, but we're kind of looking at some different options. We've also been in touch with I've been talking with the owner and general manager of the Tiki. Our hope is to work out something with them. As Kieran says, the focus is on July 4. And we're going to see what happens exactly with that tournament. What kind of, the deal that Annette had there was a very personal one. And so there are some issues to be worked out with those guys. And we're going to do the best we can to make sure that happens.
Yep.
Things look good because I believe it's the same venue as July 4, right? Things look good for New Year's. And so, again, we would be looking to have a new flyer out for that soon. And then we're going to see what happens with Saratoga. I don't think either of us has been in touch with the Gideon
Putnam, yep.
Putnam.
It's a whole other venue, so we're focused on the ones in order of how they come. So
That's
first
right.
July 4th, then we'll get to Lake George and
Absolutely.
et cetera. But we definitely want to continue them and keep the tradition alive for all the people in that brought together. So we're looking forward to that.
The other thing that we're planning, we'll talk about this a little bit, but details are to come this week, I imagine. we're going to be setting up a GoFundMe to help with funeral expenses and some medical expenses, and kind of like there's some Scrabble debt where people had pre-registered and prepaid for things that obviously those funds are not necessarily going to be available. So there are a few different kind of things there, but the idea is we are going to do a GoFundMe, and that will go to help the family and help ensure that these tournaments go forward. Right? Anything else to say there?
Nope. Okay. Probably the next day or two.
Gotcha. So that's that's our show. And I really appreciate all of you that have checked in, that have watched, that have shared in comments, and just I've gotten, and I know you have even more so than me, but I've received lots of personal comments and kind of shared experiences with Annette, and Annette was
I'd like
amazing.
to end on our stories, Josh. I'd like to end on our stories that
Go
we
ahead,
posted
please.
in the thing. One
Absolutely.
of my favorite stories about Annette, among all of them, was she would never say my name right. She'd call me Kern and Kerwin and Karen, and so one day she called me Kernan, and I was like, Annette, it's Kieran. I said, we're like 10 years into this relationship. It's Kieran. She goes, whatever. I hate that name. Oh, she was great.
I honestly, I don't even remember the story that I wrote for the announcement in the moment. But look, 1,000 interactions with Annette. Probably one of the things that I remember the most was I would help her with the budget and determining the prize fund over the last couple of years. And so we would put it all together. I'd do it up on a spreadsheet. I'd walk her through it. She would agree or whatever. And then she would turn around and start slipping extra 20s or 50s.
She completely ignored everything we did.
That's right. So the history of it, anyway, it was crazy because we would constantly have this back and forth about, moving money around and whatever else. And she'd be like, it's not moving money around. It's just putting an extra 100 in the top envelope.
The other story is, I don't know what kind of purse she had, but she could pull anything out of that purse. Seth Lipkin posted, I forget what he said, tuna sandwich or something pulled out of her purse. And she used to just pull stuff out of her purse, but oh goodness, she was one of a kind. We're definitely going to miss her. I'm hoping maybe we can collect for the memorial, and maybe we can crowdsource either videos or anybody who's got that kind of stuff. We can get a massive sort of slideshow going. That would be awesome.
I've certainly received some photos, but I would love to get more. And I know I have some more somewhere. I don't think I got to all the photos that I wanted to tonight, but they're in the slideshow, which I'll play at the end of the episode. But yeah, certainly any video. One of my regrets, I mean, I suggested this a number of times, but I wanted to do a sit-down interview with Annette. And actually, I wanted to pitch NASPA on the idea of maybe like a podcast series with some Scrabble pioneers. And maybe this is the catalyst to do that. But whenever I would suggest an interview, Annette would be like, next time. She didn't want to, she didn't necessarily want to go on camera. But yeah, certainly any video that anybody has would be amazing. We're already gonna look at some of the photos, some of the great photos that Roger has.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah, at least one, if not a couple, we're going to blow up and frame and put on the wall at these tournaments. So yeah, I think the point of tonight is to get across, what a character Annette was. She built a real legacy with these tournaments, organizing them for 25 years. I mean, give or take.
I think that's what's on the flyer, like the 25th nor'easter.
Yeah.
Might even be longer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it's a hell of a legacy, and we're going to do our best to honor that and continue that, and just, you know, I loved it.
Does that mean one of us has to carry a purse and pull stuff out of it?
There we go. Olinga says she doesn't do GoFundMe, but she would do a direct donation.
Excellent.
So maybe we'll keep that in mind. That's actually a good point that you bring up, Olinga. Okay. Any last words here, Kieran?
No, I hope to see people, especially at July 4th, and we can chat, and whatever the memorial looks like, where we can chat on that. That'd be great.
For sure.
So
And
hope
thanks,
to see people.
And just thank you for being on the show. Thanks everybody for watching. And like I said, we'll go out with the same slideshow that we began the show with. There are about, I think, 17 pictures in this particular slideshow. So if you want to watch that, that'll play for about a minute or so once as we finish. If you're new to NASPA Tonight, normally we do a show that's about Scrabble headlines and stuff like that. I encourage you to check it out. For Kieran O'Connor and myself, thanks very much for watching, and much love to Annette. Good night, everybody.
Good night.